All right, welcome to the CASA program at Trinity College Dublin information session. This is just focused primarily looking towards fall 2025 to 2026. I'll be noting where details are specific to that, but by and large, the program mostly stays the same year on year. If it doesn't have details on which semester it's for, it probably just applies to the whole time. My name is Emma Gopreth, and I am the CASA program officer. So I lead the program at Trinity College Dublin. And my colleague Eva is here joining me. If you want to introduce yourself, Eva.
Hi everyone, my name is Eva. I'm Eva Mahon. I work with Emma as an admin officer for CASA in Dublin, Trinity College. So you'll see me at events and I liaise with all our suppliers. So yeah, I'm welcome here.
Perfect. Just to give you an overview of what we're going to be covering today, program introduction, CASA staff. We've already done the introductions of the CASA staff actually, but just to go through our backgrounds a little bit, we'll go a little bit into life in Dublin as well as Trinity College Dublin, the academic experience and student life at Trinity, and then the program excursions and program support that CASA Dublin will be providing, as well as the housing. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with the requirements to actually apply to the program and then the application steps. And we have a beautiful picture of the campus on our right here. Okay, so if you're not familiar with what CASA is, just to explain that a little bit, it stands for the Consortium for Advanced Studies Abroad, and it's a nonprofit academic consortium. So Lila, the reason why you're probably here is that Columbia probably markets all the CASA programs through their website because Columbia is a CASA member. So we all work in tandem, all the CASA members work in tandem to build out these programs that are supposed to be comparably rigorous to your own home institution and share some of the same values and things that we want out of study abroad. So the program itself, this one takes place within Trinity College Dublin. So we are both Trinity employees, Ev and I, and we are based within Trinity. So that's a little bit different from the other CASA programs where there's a center and then they send out to partner institutions. We are both the partner institution and the actual program itself. So that's a little bit of a difference. If you're looking at other CASA programs or talking to other students that are applying to those, that's a different structure. So then the program offers immersive benefits beyond what you would get if you were directly enrolling at Trinity, primarily in the staff that are supporting the program. That's me and Eva, but also in the extensive advising that we provide, as well as the support and group excursions throughout the semesters, which we'll talk a little bit about in a second. So essentially the big thing is the staff support. That's probably the biggest difference that you would see if you were talking to a peer while you're studying abroad. We are very hands-on when it's needed and very hands-off when it's not needed. But generally we're adding a bit more structure around the experience at Trinity than you would get if you were just a direct enroll student. Okay, so again, I'm Emma Gopreth. I lead the program, and Eva is our administrative officer. We also always have a student ambassador who is a fourth year at Trinity. So currently our study abroad or our student ambassador is a student who went on a CASA program previously. Sometimes they could be someone who's been on a CASA program. Usually they'll be a student that studied abroad on an exchange program in the US, ideally with a CASA partner, but sometimes they may have gone elsewhere. And basically they're just another resource. So obviously I'll be there to advise on things that are more serious, but the CASA study abroad student advisor would be helping with any student life things. So like if you were struggling to get in contact with a student society or something like that, they'd be there to help with that. He also sends out a weekly email. I think we'll be continuing that tradition. We've done it the last 2 years where the student ambassador will send out a weekly email to just say, this is what's going on at Trinity, this is what's going on in Dublin, and then give some suggestions about things that you might want to do amongst those activities. Okay, so why CASA Dublin? So specifically, Trinity College Dublin is pretty consistently ranked as the #1 university in Ireland. It's quite old, which some people really love. It's been around since 1592. Um, so there's a lot of history and a lot of prestige that comes with going to Trinity. Um, we like to think that we're a really rigorous academic institution as well, which I would say bears out in most students' experiences. You guys are coming from very strong institutions, so occasionally you may find the semester easier or harder, it just depends on the student. Um, it's a good place to be studying if you want to explore Ireland because Dublin is kind of a hub of transport within Ireland. So there are certain routes that would take you basically like north of Dublin and then all the way back up north. Whereas if you're living in Dublin, you would just go one route rather than having to go in and out. So it's very handy for that as well. We do try to promote Irish immersion on the program as well. So we have a couple activities that we try to do in tandem with different student societies, like a GAA event. So GAA stands for Gaelic Athletic Association, and we run that with students that are on that club at Trinity. We also have an orientation program that's built specifically for the CASA program that helps integrate you into the university from the moment you step foot on the ground in Dublin. So that is really handy with immersing. The cohort of CASA, of the actual program, is really helpful in making friends when you first get here as well. I always see students that end up branching out, but it's a nice place to be if you're kind of uncertain about coming by yourself. You just automatically have that group built in. And then, as I was saying, the program support is pretty invaluable. Trinity is quite a large place, so coming here outside of a program cohort can be sometimes intimidating, but when you're coming on the CASA Dublin program, you are getting us as these insiders that can help direct you on where to go within the college. And then the academics, like I was saying, Trinity is pretty consistently ranked as #1 in Ireland. So if you are planning to come to Ireland and hoping to get the best education possible, there'd be an argument to be made that Trinity is the best place to do that. I won't go on and on about that, but if you do a little bit of looking into world rankings, again, we're pretty much #1 for most of those in Ireland anyways. Okay, and then why Dublin? So a couple of these overlap, but specifically outside of what I just said there, Dublin is generally, or Ireland in general, but also Dublin are considered fairly safe as they go. If you're comparing to like the UK, especially, or most places in the US, including like New York City, it's extremely safe. Now, we are still a big European capital city, so there are some caveats to that. And we talk about safety during orientation to kind of combat things that might look a little different on the Irish side versus the US side. But generally, it's a very safe experience here. It's a fun city life, so there is a lot going on because it's the capital city of Ireland. We have a thriving culture of museums, theater, art, music, really there isn't a week that goes by where there wouldn't be anything to do. You could never get bored. It's a very historic city on different levels. So it is a very old city, but you can kind of see the passage of time as you're going around the city, all the different landmarks of those eras. And specifically, it is a UNESCO City of Literature. It is also at the same time very modern and innovative. So Dublin is the global tech hub for many EU headquarters for tech specifically, to the point where there's a district that's kind of nicknamed the Silicon Docks. That's in the picture there. And yeah, so it's just a vibrant capital city. If you like city life, it's good for that. But if you're a little intimidated by city life, then it's kind of a nice starting point because it's not such a big city. It's kind of it's like 1.5 million, I think now. But that's a sprawling population. So while the city can be quite busy, it's not totally jammed the way that maybe New York might be. Okay, so Trinity College Dublin. So as I've noted, it's quite an old university and it's world ranking. You have a picture of one of the buildings on campus here. It's called the Museum Building. And you might go in there to take modules if you are in archaeology or geology and different earth sciences. So that's just an example of one of the old, beautiful buildings we have on campus. It is also worth noting that Trinity is literally in the heart of Dublin. So actually, if you look at any maps of Dublin, it really is smack bang in the middle, which means that getting to campus is really easy. And getting to anywhere else in Dublin from campus is also really easy because pretty much all of the transportation revolves around Trinity. Academic experience. So just before I go into that, this picture on the right is of the old library. That's it says it in the name, it's quite old. It is being refurbished at the moment, but you can still go in and see it without all of the books. And there's also a Book of Kells experience that's attached to it. So you can see the old library and see the Book of Kells all in one go. As a student, you can do that for free, which is nice. But to go on about the academic experience, you don't actually go into this library, I should mention, to rent or to take out books. We have other libraries on campus for that. Students take all of their classes at Trinity. We call those modules at Trinity. That's important to note if you're looking at any information on our website. We will call classes modules. And when I say class, I mean like Psych 101 as a class. Um, when you're applying to Trinity, you apply to 2 to 5 areas of study. So it's really important to note that when you apply to Trinity, you are not just applying to Trinity, you're applying to the areas that you want to take modules within at Trinity. So there's no such thing as just being accepted to Trinity. You're accepted to Trinity in English, geography, and natural science, we'll say. So it is really important to note that you can take modules across any of those approved areas. I would say the more areas that you apply to, the more difficult it might be to manage a schedule. So if you're trying to take 5 different modules in 5 different areas, that can be quite hard. But if you're only looking at applying to 3 areas, that's a pretty good place to be. You can always talk to me individually about that as you're applying. But it is important to note that you can only take modules within the areas that you're approved for. And that takes place during the admissions process. After you submit the application, you're reviewed for those areas and you're given feedback on which ones you've gone into and which ones you haven't. You can see the full list of areas in our study abroad guide, which also has criteria for those areas of study. That will be updated probably sometime in January for the 2025-2026 year. It is a bit outdated right now, so there are certain ones that don't have the full criteria on, but it's good enough to look at. It's not so outdated that it's inaccurate entirely. Then module enrollment itself takes place either during orientation, if you're coming in the fall, so when you're on the ground here in Ireland, or if you're applying for the spring, it takes place, the spring students actually that are about to come will be applying for, or will be enrolling in their modules December 6th. And they have 2 weeks to enroll online. So it's different depending on which semester you come in. And it is a quite manual process. So I will say that if you're used to kind of like logging in and plugging in the classes you want and receiving immediate feedback on which modules you've gotten into, it's not that way at Trinity. But it always sorts itself out. It's just one of the kinks of being an old university. We have some old processes. So that is that. The academic style, full degree students at Trinity are enrolled in one course of study and they're told the classes that they take. So for instance, if you're a student who has come to Trinity for history, you are taking history for your entire time at Trinity and nothing else. It's also just important to note that basically even the application process is different for Irish students. So they apply to history at Trinity. Like the area actually comes first. People don't generally say, "Oh, I'm going to go to Trinity." and just go to Trinity for whatever I can go to it for. Generally speaking, they're applying to history at Trinity and then history at UCD and history at UCC. So like there, you kind of know which area you want to go into, or course. The course is the name of a major here, basically. And then they choose which one, if they get several offers, which they might, they generally would choose the one that's their location preference. Yeah, basically it's important to note that they're taking all that same subject their entire time. There's no such thing as gen eds. The only comparable piece to that are Trinity electives, which they can only take one of each semester. Um, so just a bit of background on that. So again, that's why you as a student would be applying to areas of study as a study abroad student, because that's still the system for everybody else that would come into the university, because all the classes are built with the assumption that you have the background up to that point, essentially. Um, there's a really strong emphasis on independent research and honing in on your primary area of study. So again, because they're only studying that one thing for the whole time, it just means that the classes are assuming you have more knowledge in the area coming into it than maybe in the US. And there it's a lot more independent, which is great if you're someone who really likes doing your own thing when it comes to classes. Maybe not so great if you're someone who really likes a lot of structure in your classes and discussions. Um, that can kind of differ depending on what area you're going into in Trinity, but generally that is the experience that I would say students are going to have. So, Trinity student life, we have over 18,000 students from more than 118 countries. I don't know why that's so specific and then says more, but we're very international campus. That's the easiest way to say it. The great thing is that you have access to everything Dublin has to offer, but then you also have the student life on campus, which is made up of 170 plus clubs and societies. You also get a gym membership at our sports center. And just to give an example of the different student societies that are here, two of the oldest debating societies in the world exist at Trinity, and they bring in guest speakers. They have like fun debates, and then they have more serious debates. It's just a really cool part of the legacy of Trinity that you as a student can go into even as a visiting student. Okay, so CASA program, excursions and events. These are just some examples of things that we do during the semester. I would say we generally try to do something with the program, with all of the students on the program every 2 weeks or so. It doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes we might have 3 events in one week and then not have any for 2 weeks. It just really, it depends on how things go with planning, but generally that's what we try to aim for. I'd say for this coming semester and for this semester, we had 4 Saturday events, but then the rest would be evening events, or sometimes we might do something during the day. We try to avoid that because we don't want to ask you guys to skip class. But generally, they would be in the evenings. And they really run the gamut of difference and things that we do. So um, we generally go to Glendalough during orientation. Glendalough is a beautiful natural area and historical area, beauty in County Wicklow. That's actually in the bottom right picture here. And then we always go to Northern Ireland to see Giant's Causeway, which is in the top right picture here. And we do a mural tour of Belfast. Other things we do depends on the semester are a tree day in County Wicklow where we help plant trees and do maintenance on a reforested site in County Wicklow. We do usually go do an Abbey theater production, and then we always have group meals. So we try to do a couple different events where we just eat a meal together. And that's just to give a place for you guys all to get together as a group, for us to see how things are going and to give you and to feed you, basically. And then we have just other things that we'll do. So this semester we went and saw small things like these together. We wouldn't always go and see a movie. That's actually, I think, the first time we've done that. But we did it because it was an Irish film that was really important on a topic that we had actually talked about in orientation. So there are things that we'll do like that that kind of connect back to pieces earlier in the semester and just depend on what's out during the year. Okay, sorry, this slide is a lot. And it's because it's probably one of the pieces that we get the most questions on. And it's something that we have a good amount of detail on in advance. So our housing is offsite. It is about a 20-minute bus ride, 25-minute walk from campus. It's in a private housing accommodation. It's actually called Here. Sorry, that's the old name of the accommodation building. It's called Here, Cork Street. And it's really nice because you would be living with other students from other universities along with Trinity students. And those could be full degree students, they could be study abroad students. But it's nice because there aren't a lot of other environments outside of like going out and meeting people organically where you would actually meet students from other colleges. So that's one of the highlights of this accommodation. It is apartment style. All the rooms are single, so you won't be sharing a room with anybody. You also have your own bathroom, and then you have a shared kitchen and living area. They also have communal areas on site as well. So if you can see in this bottom right corner picture, that's a picture of the common area in between the buildings, but they have common areas inside as well. And they also have a gym on site, which is nice if you don't want to go to campus. We have a block of rooms that are allocated to CASA students, but students do then have to apply for the room. So it is still your responsibility to apply for that room on time. Um, Students do pay for their housing directly on the CASA Dublin program. That's another difference to the other CASA programs. So if you're talking to anybody else that's applying to a CASA program, or if you're talking to an advisor, sometimes they may say, no, it's included. Just know it is a direct student cost. We send more details on that when you actually apply. Um, it's important to note if you do have any housing accommodations that you get at your home institution, those are good to flag with me early. It's not impossible for us to get students on campus if there is a need for that, but it's something that I just need to know about pretty far in advance. Then, just as a note, I have the rates and the dates, rates and dates, for the accommodation here in the bottom right corner. We do not have housing costs and dates for 2025, 2026 yet. Last year, we got those sometime in January. So just as a frame of reference, that's probably when we'll get them. They probably won't be vastly different from these. Particularly the dates will probably be almost the same, bar like moving a couple days in one direction or the other to fit days of the week. The actual rates themselves can't go up by too much because of restrictions within housing as mandated by the government. So I think that the threshold for them raising those costs is like, I want to say between 3 and 5%. So they shouldn't go up more than that. Just to note. Okay, so again, back to program support. We have 24/7 support through International SOS, which is a travel, and it's a travel assistance insurance. I think that's the technical way of referring to it. What I would say is it kind of is like a health concierge in some ways. So basically, when you're on, before you come to the program, you can call and talk to them about any health concerns you have. So if you are someone that sees a counselor or takes some kind of medication, you can talk to them on the phone to set up appointments before you come over, but also to get information about whether you can bring certain amounts of medication over with you, or if you can get the prescription refilled when you're in Ireland. So they're really great for that. But then when you're in country, they can also book you doctor's appointments. They can help refer you to different medical services. So you can call them and be like, I've had food poisoning for the last 3 days. and I feel like I'm dying. Should I go to A&E? And they can tell you whether you do that or not. So they're really, really fantastic for that. We also have a 24/7 number for housing and for on-campus security. So I am not on call. I think that's important for me to be transparent about. But we have all those other resources and we go through those in orientation to kind of nail down who to contact when so that you're not caught out when something does happen. So then you do have support from us and all the other resources within Trinity. So those include academic supports. So there's a learning and development office that does things like tutoring, like paper revision, that sort of thing. We have a senior tutor's office where our international tutor would sit under. So that's someone that you would go to if you had like a medical emergency and can't sit an exam. So tutor is kind of a misnomer there. It's not tutor in the American sense. It's more in the like this is a person of an academic authority sense. Um, you also have health support. So you have counseling services, health services, and I don't have it here, but we have a disability service office that I would put students in touch with if they have any sort of learning accommodations of any kind that they want to seek out when they're at Trinity. You would do that all through the disability service so that you don't necessarily need to disclose any accommodations that you would need with me unless you wanted to. We also have the Global Room, which is the support for all international students at Trinity, and they run loads of events throughout the semester. I'd say they probably have an event nearly every day. So it's a really great space to go if you just want to hang out or just attend any sort of event. Um, and then there are more. I could sit here and do a whole presentation on all the services Trinity offers, but I don't think that would be a particularly exciting presentation. So I would encourage you, if you're interested, to look at the Trinity website and kind of browse around at the different things that are on campus. Okay, so this is another loaded slide, so bear with me. So the requirements and application steps. So it's important to note that Trinity does have some eligibility requirements that you have to meet. So the first of those is that you need to have a minimum of a 3.1 GPA on a 4.0 scale. I want to say Columbia actually has above a 4.0 scale. So that just means that if you're kind of on the border, you may want to try to do some calculations on whether you meet that GPA requirement. Usually this isn't a problem for CASA students, but just a note. 2 years of college completed, so that just means that you have to have 4 semesters of college already under your belt. Then it's also important to note many of the areas have separate requirements. So that's where that study abroad guide comes into play. The criteria listed on that kind of lists out everything else. And once it's updated in January, it's going to be a lot more comprehensive than what it looks like right now. If you want to ask me about the criteria for areas before you apply, please do. I'm happy to go and, talk to you about your chances of getting into everything, and I'll be really honest with you. It also helps that I am the person assessing the applications. So if I say that you're probably not going to get into this area, it means you're not going to get into this area because I'm the person actually reviewing the application. So yeah, it's just important to note some of them will have things like a higher GPA requirement, or they may require you to be a major in the area in order to be approved. So this is kind of what going back to that whole piece earlier that I was talking about how Trinity is great if you're wanting to hone in on your primary areas. It's not so great if you're trying to take biology for the first time in college. You're probably not going to be able to do that. So please talk to me about that. Happy to have a chat. Then the actual application steps. So like I said, review the areas of study and have a look at the Trinity module directory. So it's important to have a look at that and see that there are actually modules that would be interesting to you. So certain areas will have a lot of options for visiting students and others may only have like two module options. So that's important to look at. Then you need to apply to your university for approval to study abroad by their deadline. I would just see how that lines up with our deadlines because our deadlines are quite early for study abroad. So our deadline for fall 2025 is March 1st. So that's quite early, I would say, for spring programs. And actually, the Trinity deadline itself, if you're not applying through CASA, is April 15th. So just to show how early of a deadline that is, it's good to start planning now. It's good that you're here, Lila. It means that you're ready to go. Um, so then once you've applied to your home university, different home universities have their different processes for this, but usually what would happen is that you apply and then they nominate you based off of your application to the home university. Some universities will just submit you if you're interested. You can talk to your advisor at Columbia about that. They'll be able to tell you at what point they can nominate you to the program. But basically your advisor nominates you and then you apply for Trinity. I would advise to apply to Trinity as early as you can. The application itself opens, I thought I had this on this page. Sorry about that. The application opens on January 20th. So that would be the very earliest you could apply. Um, but it's good to apply early because it just means that you'll be able to get that reassurance earlier. So like I said, I'm assessing the applications and I'm going to be doing that on a rolling basis, meaning if you apply on January 20th, I'll try to look at it as soon as possible afterwards. And if you have everything in, I could potentially get you an answer back in a couple weeks' time. This is new to this semester. So if you talk to someone about this later, just know that it has been different in previous semesters, but that is how it will be working for fall 2025, which is great. Um, yeah, review the areas of study, like I said, express interest in the program to home advisor early. Again, that's kind of going back to so that you know whatever your home institution's process is, and you can get through that in order to go and apply to Trinity. Sometimes you could do those in tandem. It just depends on the home advisor's advice on that. And then basically, once you've applied to Trinity, like I said, hopefully you'll get an answer from me way before March 1st. And then you can commit to the program. I think we would usually send the commitment form out after the application deadline, and you just need to sign that before the 15th. And basically, that commitment form is just you saying that your intent is to go on the program. This is to help us plan because it might sound crazy, but some of our vendors we have to book out like a year in advance. So basically, it's allowing us to get the ball rolling further for that. Yeah, and on our right here is just a picture of the campanile. That's the view that you get when you walk into Trinity's campus. It's really lovely. We use it as a meeting point for several different things through the semester. And I think that's the last slide. Oh, last slide is this one. So if you're interested in learning more about Dublin outside of this session, you can go to casa.education/Dublin. I'm still updating the pages for the fall 2025 details. So just keep a lookout if the information relevant to that is not there yet. It should be before the end of the year. But you can also always email me with any questions that you have if there's something that's not on the website that you have further questions about. You can also contact Global Brown for any general CASA questions. And that is truly it now. Okay, that's the end of the slideshow.